The second topic I want to focus on is the modding community, and more about the crackdown on it. It's kind of a sad state of affairs right now that we have big publishers like Take Two and Nintendo who are quite aggressively going after the modding community, even though it brings a lot of value to the game community. Publishers like Nintendo and Take Two have been cracking down on modding communities for some time, and at varying degrees. The most recent one is Take Two going after the GTA 3 modding community, who has done a ton of awesome work, and has like sort of with law as a cudgel has gone after people who are updating lighting engines, textures, any number of things to make the game more modern and better, and has sort of brought a lot of support behind that game and given it longer legs. They're going after it. Basically, they're issuing DMCA takedowns on ModDB to remove the mods that are available. Nintendo has also done this, specifically in the Smash Brothers community, and Nintendo also has just like a bad track record of going after creative content that uses their IPs, and we'll take it off of YouTube. We'll take it even just like recorded videos. They've gone after the modding community as well, particularly with the Smash Brothers scene and going after some of the mods available for Smash Brothers. Now it's kind of a gray area because the Smash Brothers mods will use sometimes pirated copies of the games or broken copies of the game in order to use the mods, and that's their main issue with it. But they've even gone as far as going after like the largest Smash Brothers tournament because they were using a mod called Slippy that allowed Melee, which was not online, to be used online. And they had to do this because the tournament was an online only tournament because of COVID. And in order to have people play Melee, they had to do it using Slippy. And Nintendo, under threat, canned the entire tournament because they were using a mod that they didn't like. So it's really kind of insidious at this point. And I say this because not all mods are actually breaking any sort of law. Software is not Nintendo's or Take Two's to possess. Like once you purchase the software off a disc, you can access the software as you see fit. They can try to prevent it, and they can also stop you legally from redistributing that software. But what modders typically do are not taking game code and redistributing game code. What they're doing is adding new code to the game that would be installed in directories or whatever else and allow you to appreciate the game in different ways. Good games support this community. Games like Skyrim have officially supported mods within their game, and for the better, because a game like Skyrim would not be popular today if it wasn't for the thousands of updates that are available that make it graphically better, update the lighting engine and all this other stuff to make the game last a lot longer. And the same thing goes with the GTA community. But let's take a look first at what the modding community has given the game industry. For one, Gearbox Entertainment is a company that is entirely founded on modding. They started modding Valve or Half-Life way back when, which allowed them to blow out the company first by doing ports for companies and then eventually making their own content, their own games. But like we wouldn't have Borderlands if not for the modding community and two guys in their basement starting Gearbox there. Another thing modding community has given us is a bunch of games, and I don't know if how much people are aware of this, but the Dota, Team Fortress, Counter-Strike, even DayZ, all are big games that are based off of mods. Age of Empires is even based off of a mod, at least the original one way back when. But these games got their legs starting by modding the some base game, usually a PC game, and building up from there and creating new content and ways to play and whatever else that brought an entire community around it and showed that there was enough support for an independent game to be developed. So the way that they're attacking, and this is what I want to highlight, is that um, big companies especially use law like a cudgel to pressure companies to stop doing things that aren't even illegal. And in the case of the modding community, most of the stuff is not illegal. It's not being illegally distributed. It's not done illegally. But what happens is a company like Take Two will threaten a lawsuit. And whether or not there's legal standing for it or not, you still have to challenge it in court. You can imagine that like a small website that's hosting mods, or even just the modder themselves, having to defend themselves against Take Two, they will get buried under legal paperwork. And this is a common thing that's used. Like a lot of companies use it. Sony's used it to bury companies. Nintendo uses it a lot to really pressure community makers from producing things. But basically, they're not using the law correctly. They're using the law as a way to bludgeon people into stopping doing what they're doing, even though in likely court case it would be found guilty and they would lose. But they have to be tried to lose, and someone's got to take up the court case. Now, that it's not to say that the legal mechanisms that are used are all wrong. There are definite things that are illegal, like you cannot redistribute someone else's code. So even if you buy a game like Super Smash Bros. Melee, taking a chunk of that code, modifying it, and having the code that's within it being Nintendo's written code, and then redistributing that, it's illegal. And they have a right to go after that, and they should, if they want to at least. And another kind of, it's a gray area, but it's definitely illegal, is using the IP and likenesses of characters that aren't there. So when people make like a fan remake of a game, they can't legally redistribute that. They're using the IP from Nintendo and selling it and redistributing it and making money in any way is 100% illegal. Nintendo does have the right to go after that. I think as gamers and even as game developers, we should really call out the developers when they're doing stuff like this, because most of us, especially if we grew up in the 80s and 90s, likely had some sort of start either playing with mods or modding games that had existed before. I mean, I went to art school and studied graphic design and 3D animation, and even then they were saying, go take Unreal Tournament and modify it, and that's how you'll get into the game industry, if you can show that you can modify existing games. Now, Unreal makes that available, but when you look at things like Nintendo and them attacking it, that's when it sort of draws the line. If you don't like it, you should really be reaching out to Nintendo, reaching out to Take Two, and supporting the people who are calling out what is rightfully wrong, and that is pressuring the game modding community from shutting down when they have legal right to be modding games.